But without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to crack on. So this is session 2. For those of you that don't know, we're going to be doing 2 more workshops on Friday as well. They're going to be completely different to what you're going to see today. It's going to be one at 10 a.m, one at 2 p.m, and then a keynote presentation up on the terrace on Wednesday morning at 9:30 as well. So if you can make them, amazing. If not, like I just said, they will be recorded. But before we do start, I want everyone to do a quick exercise with me, right? Get down, 10 press up. No, I'm joking. I want everyone to put their hands up, please, and put your hand down when this particular thing doesn't apply to you anymore, right? So firstly, put your hand up if you have heard of AI. It doesn't matter if you don't necessarily know what it is. Okay. Keep your hand up, keep your hand up. Do you know, now keep your hand up if you use AI every day. Amazing. Keep your hand up if you pay for at least 2 softwares that are AI related. Amazing. Keep your hand up if you would kind of consider yourself a power user. So if you've built an automation, you built a dashboard, you've connected things up. Amazing. Now, a little bit. Okay, you're in the middle. I don't have that category ready, but it comes in the middle there. And then now I want you to keep your hand up if you feel like you're keeping on top of AI and you know everything there is that you need to know about AI and you're super confident. No? Yeah, I'd put my hand down too, and I'm the one standing here, right? It's moving at extreme pace. Yeah, Michael, okay, amazing. He's in the middle too. Okay, so we're living in a world where things are moving extremely fast, right? The last 2 years, we've had as much information generated as every year combined before that, right? Like the rate of acceleration is insane. And there's so many different tools on the market. They've all got infinite budgets. They've all got the smartest people in the world working on them. And they all look like they're the best tool ever. They're going through something I keep kind of referring to as AI arms race, AI Cold War, right? Where they basically just keep out-competing each other, stealing each other's features and adding them in. And it's something like what Instagram and Facebook have done in the past because they're big enough to do so. Snapchat, their whole kind of USP as a product was that they had story feature. There's nothing stopping Instagram from just using their developers to copy. So that is how these kind of tools are evolving. And the whole point of this is to understand that AI tools are tools and they should be used as such. Some are very good at certain tasks, some are not good at others. And hopefully by the end of this workshop, you understand, 1, how to identify a tool, 2, some of my favorite tools that are my opinion and you can maybe go away and play with and you might not have heard of before, and also how to use these specialist tools in different scenarios. So yeah, this is the AI Toolkit, what to use and when. So a lot of people think that you've got to catch them all, right? You have to get every single AI tool in the market. You need to pay for hundreds of subscriptions like I do, but that's not necessarily the case. You can do a lot of work with a few set of everyday very good tools. And you shouldn't be thinking about collecting tools necessarily. You should think about hiring them, almost like mercenaries, like you want to use them as and when you need them. And how you should kind of think about it is that every tool needs a clear, specific role, and it needs to have a description of what you're actually going to achieve to earn its place in your essential stack of tools. And if you can't really name the job, the owner of the specific tool, or the outcome of adopting it, then just don't adopt it. That would be my advice. And you can kind of think about what recurring business task does this tool actually perform? Who is responsible for using it and improving it, right? Because you should have almost like a champion within your business or kind of in your organization that is leading the way and kind of representing your AI initiatives in your business. What output does it actually produce? What asset, decision, automation, or kind of customer result does it help you achieve? And then what does success look like? So how do you know if it's worth keeping after 30 days? A lot of these tools have really, really good free plans because of that kind of AI arms race. They kind of have to, because if they don't, their biggest competitor will. So a lot of the free plans or the very low tier plans will allow you to explore them quite a lot deeper than most of you probably actually need to. This is what a typical organization structure currently looks like and has always kind of looked, right? You have a C-suite position, you have a head of department, you have a department manager, then you have the specific roles that are in that particular job role. But AI is shifting that structure. So if we give you a visual of what a financial team might look like, you'd have a CFO, a head of accounts, a finance manager, and then under the finance manager, you'd have an accounts payable specialist, an accounts receivable specialist, and a payroll officer, right? And they'd each have their own specific job. Well, like I said, AI is shifting this structure, and a lot of people think that they're taking our jobs, right? There's supposed to be sound here.
They took your job. They took your job. They took your job. They took your job.
Right? So that is what most people think AI is going to do. They're going to take your job and you're going to be sitting there doing nothing or moaning about it in a hall. But that's not the case. And again, if you were in this morning session, you'll understand that my philosophy is if you think AI can and will replace your team, you've got the wrong team members in the first place. And you should be thinking about using AI, automation, system building to amplify your current team, to make them A star players as opposed to just A players, or helping your B players move up to an A player, for example. So how does an AI augmented team look? And just in interest of space on the slide, imagine each individual account role has the same branch that the current CFO has. And again, in my talk this morning, I spoke about how you can and will get 3 to 5 times the output of an AI augmented team as opposed to a standard team that most of you guys are currently running in now. A CFO, instead of just having an head of accounts, a finance manager, and then the rest of their team structure underneath, what the CFO will have is a set of agents that help him deal with his or hers day-to-day recurring tasks that are admin heavy and there's not too much specialist thinking, client interaction needed. They'll each have their own tasks. And when I say agent, I'm using that as a more general term, as a tool, an agent, an automation, a workflow, etc., just so everyone's clear for the rest. And the shift is that your team will be able to manage judgment, control, escalation, and workflows, designing like the architecture of the system, as opposed to just doing the boring, monotonous, non-revenue driving, non-engaging task. And what that allows you to do is amplify your team, more creative work, more client-facing work, more capacity, and increase that revenue per head, right? So how do you get to a situation like that? You might think, like I said, you need hundreds of subscriptions. Not necessarily the case, because I use around 10 AI tools for 90% of my work. Quite honestly, probably actually less than that as well if I really had to. And each one excels at a different area. But honestly, figuring out which tool excels at which task takes months, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of breaking things and then rebuilding them. So I've kind of done a lot of that for you. So hopefully you don't have to do that. You can take a lot of this away. And we've actually been implementing these kind of systems, tools, processes and whatnot into businesses since 2023. So we've got quite a lot of experience in amplifying businesses and service-based agencies essentially to amplify their teams like we've kind of just been discussing. I bucket AI tools and agents into 6 groups. I bucket them into everyday AI, search and synthesis, a creative studio, autonomous agents, smart assets, and then the tools that can be used for automation and orchestration. That's how I think about them in my head. You know, feel free to take those and adjust them however you want to. But I think this is a really useful kind of framework and kind of structure that you could use when looking at tools. So what does that actually mean? When we're looking at everyday AI, these are the categories that kind of cover the tools that you kind of use constantly, right? They're your go-to partners for everyday work. When I asked at the start of this session who uses AI on a day-to-day basis, I'm assuming that most of you, if not all of you, it is one of these 3 tools. And to most of you, that is probably the extent of your knowledge on the AI tools that are on the market to the kind of end consumer, like everyone in this room. But a tool basically sits in this bucket if it is flexible across many use cases, it's fast, and it's conversational. That's kind of the main point. It's super conversational and you can achieve tasks by just speaking to it in a conversational manner. ChatGPT, the OG, the one that got everyone talking about AI, the one that kind of pioneered the AI boom to the end consumer. A lot of people didn't realize AI was a thing other than The Matrix or iRobot or Star Wars until ChatGPT, right? But AI has been a thing for decades. It's how Google's search algorithm literally works. It's how loads of technology that we don't really have access to or really know about. But this is in 2023 when people really started understanding it. So ChatGPT is typically on par in capability with Gemini and Claude, which are the other two everyday AIs we're going to speak about. However, its kind of strength or its superpower, in my opinion, is that it's the most obedient model, and it kind of does exactly what you tell it to do. And might sound a bit weird to someone who doesn't use AI as much as I do, right? But when you give a set of instructions and a list or a workflow or a goal that you want to achieve to Gemini or Claude, they often want to forget about a task, or they want to assume that they know better than you do when you're trying to achieve something, which in some cases is true. And in some cases, that is why I use the other tool, because I don't necessarily know how to fill in that gap. But if you need a set of instructions followed to the T, ChatGPT is your go-to, in my opinion. Steep research function is also pretty good, but again, the other models are very strong and they all kind of have different superpowers. You then have Gemini. Gemini is Google's model, and where ChatGPT wins on obedience, Gemini wins on modality. And what that basically means is it can actually watch videos, it can actually listen to audio, and it can actually make sense of it. Whereas the other platforms, they can't natively do that. They have to basically break it down and translate it into its own version that it can understand and comprehend. So it's the only everyday AI that can actually handle videos, audios, and massive files like that natively. And here's quite a cool example. I use a tool called Loom quite a lot in my business, and that allows me to record myself on my screen. So I can update clients, I can give my teams tasks, I can record standard operating procedures so that they're on file and can be reused and whatnot. I recorded this 3-minute and 21-second video, literally super messy. Guys, so your Slack's a mess, please tidy it up. This is how you tidy it up. Do this, right click here, do that, do that, do that. Obviously I was a bit nicer, but I recorded that video and I attached it, downloaded the video, attached it to Gemini and said, attached is a messy video walkthrough of me showing my team how to organize Slack channels. Watch the recording and turn it into a clean step-by-step checklist. And then it was able to watch the video itself, and literally within seconds, it was able to articulate what I said almost to the T, and then build a 4-step kind of workflow on how it should do the task that I've said, but in plain English. So when I'm now sharing resources with my team on how to achieve something, not only have they got a video walkthrough, they've also got a written walkthrough on how to do this specific task. So if they don't follow that step by step and they still get stuck, then that's obviously where they can bring me in the loop. But otherwise, they've got everything they need here. And again, there's loads of different ways you can use this. If you're recording a YouTube video, a piece of content, and you want to extract more ideas from it, if you want to update a client and then write the follow-up email off the back of the video, you're also going to send to them, because people consume content in different ways. Like I always think, if I wanted to get 5 of my friends together, I know I need to call one of them, I need to WhatsApp the other one, I need to Instagram DM the other one, because everyone kind of reacts slightly differently. This is the same with how people work. So it allows me to give everyone I need, my team, my clients, every kind of option in a really, really easy to use manner. It also allows me to build out my own knowledge bases. Like again, I touched on in the first session this morning, the more knowledge that you have about how your business specifically works, the better your AI models can work. So it allowed me in literally seconds to turn a video into a piece of knowledge that any AI now can comprehend and articulate towards my business. So with Gemini, there's a few interesting points. The reasoning often lags very bad, which basically means it's the dumbest model out of all of them, in my opinion, which is crazy to me because Google's entire AI suite and the stuff they're doing at DeepMind is unreal. Like most of the tools on this list, funny enough, are Google suite products where they adjust their Gemini reasoning model, but the actual chat functionality I don't think is very good at all. But the workspace integration is the real moat. So if you use Google Workspace, like I do, you can literally log into your Gemini, say @workspace, and that will give it access to your entire workspace, and you can kind of query things based on that workspace. And I find that the writing still needs a lot of polish. Like it gives ideas, but it's not very good from my experience. And again, everyone has slightly different experiences. The massive pro, and the reason why I still use Gemini, one, obviously the thing I just mentioned, but two, it's included in most Google Business Workspace plans. So I'm paying for the Gmail, I'm paying for the Google Docs, paying for the Google Slides, whatnot, and I get it anyway. So for the very specific niche use cases, that's why it sits in my toolbox right now. And yeah, it is very good. And we'll touch on it a bit later on, but a lot of you are thinking, how I just mentioned at the start, Georgia, about connecting your Gmail. Every AI model allows you to connect your different Google tools and your Microsoft tools too, but because they're third-party integrations, they do miss some functionality here and there. You've got Claude by Anthropic. Anthropic is the group or the company that owns Claude. The two co-founders of Claude were ex-OpenAI employees who created ChatGPT. So you can kind of see that AI arms race in real-time action. Currently, again, in my opinion, they are the best everyday AI model. In my experience, they create higher quality first drafts than any other model. They're far superior at copywriting and code-related tasks. And it has a host of external use cases and tools that you can actually utilize within their infrastructure, which we're going to go through a lot today. Helps you with design, with coding, helps you with visualizing dashboards. It's pretty unreal. And again, it's all accessible in their same plan that costs the same as a GPT subscription. I'm reading a book at the moment called Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. It's a book all about how systems work. Very, very fun, even in activities that I have, right? But just to showcase, this is in my Claude chat, right? I haven't had to go off or ask it to do anything specific. I just asked, the prompt before was, remind me what the stocks and flows chart looks like from Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. And what it was able to do is actually draw out this chart for me in chat so I can visually see and read about it at the same time. So it's told me that stocks are the accumulations, flows are the rate of change, feedback loops are what makes systems behave the way that they do. And then it's visually shown me that. And these are diagrams pulled from the book and re-articulated to allow me to look at it. I could then give it a specific use case for whatever situation I'm looking at, and then what it would allow that to do is actually adjust this. So like there's loads of charts in the book about the rate of change of temperature, for example. I might be looking at that same concept, but on how the stock market moves or how my ad creatives are fatiguing over time. And you can kind of just do that and conceptualize it a bit better. I was also doing a personal finance task within Claude, and it actually built me out a similar diagram that had editable functions in the diagram. So it could say, well, if you invest X amount and change the number, it would change in real time. So it's just a really nice interactive tool that you can kind of use and enhance your workflows and what you're trying to articulate. There's also things called artifacts. And these aren't artifacts like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But what they are is they are custom tools that you can use again within chat that don't need to be deployed. They don't need any complex coding. They don't need any hosting, but they can be used to help you do a specific thing, right? So I've said, I want to build a live artifact, which I think I spelt wrong looking at that now, to help me track core KPIs in my business on a weekly basis. So ask me some clarifying questions to get the best output. For those of you who missed this morning session, that sentence, ask me some clarifying questions to get the best output, ask every single chat that you ever use from now until AI takes over, that, right? Because that will make all of your outputs 10 times better. Your chat will then literally interview you and it will ask you, where are my knowledge gaps to get this task done? So I'd recommend you definitely doing that with everything. And then it then started interviewing me, as you can see. The questions popped up and I answered my questions. It kind of gave me some assumed questions and then it allowed a free text if I didn't like those answers. I answered through, what do you want to show? I want to show revenue and pipeline and personal productivity. What else do you want to show? Monthly recurring revenue, yeah, sure, let's tick that. Tick, tick, tick. Then it's answered all the questions. And then it's built me out this artifact within my chat, which as you can see on the video, I'm playing around with. I can input my revenue, my deep hours, my biggest win, which was preparing for Sopa's House AI week, which obviously we're in right now. And my biggest blocker for the week, which has really affected my mood for the entire week, but that is that Arsenal probably going to win the league now. So that is my biggest blocker, right? And I can click Save Week, and you can see for the 4th of May to the 10th of May, it's going to save that as an input. And you can see here, look, it's showing me a live visual. Now I'm going to go back to the week before and put in some numbers. And when I save this, it's then going to show me my percentage change and then a live dashboard that actually updates in real time as and when I put that data in. So again, there's a few small personal tasks you can use this with. There's a few kind of core tracking things you can do within your business that you might want to keep track of as a business leader or as someone in a team that wants to keep track of core KPIs. But yeah, there's loads of really cool use cases there. This is also why I like Claude a lot. These 8 things. You can use Dispatch, which allows you to basically remote control any of the cool things I just showed you here from your phone. You can build artifacts, which I just showed you, those interactive dashboards and apps. You can plug it into Excel and Google Sheets really nicely, and it can just do a lot of formulas for you. So yeah, although I studied economics, I'm glad I didn't spend a lot of time remembering formulas because I don't really need to anymore. You can build skills, which are repeatable workflows. So like the SOP that I use Gemini to generate, I can then go to Claude and say, turn this into a repeatable skill. And I've got a really cool one in my business called Project Scaffold, where I literally type /project scaffold in my chat, and then it'll start interviewing me about how we're going to build out an application and a dashboard that I can use within my business. And that's just been trained on a common workflow that we use every single week. You can connect it to loads of stuff. You can build projects out like we spoke about in this morning's session. The deep reasoning is very good, and the research is also very good. So they're just 8 reasons why I like Claude. Again, if you want to hear me talk about it for ages, I could probably do this for like 10 or 12 hours, to be honest, quite easily. Click the print button. Why does a clicker have a print button? Right. So yeah, as you can see, AI is not taking the jobs. Can't even use it. It's going to take mine soon, but Isaac, we good? Perfect. So anyway, sorry guys, that was my Claude fanboy over. To move on, just to quickly explain, and I kind of touched on this concept a bit on the previous session, but building a montage digital brain has been our biggest unlock, I would say, because it literally allows you to package up every piece of knowledge from your business into readable files that any large language model can read and access and articulate and contextualize immediately, right? Why that is so good is because if you need to open up another tool or model to play around with and test it out, you can just plug in your files and go again as if you've used that model in its entirety, right? Also, with this arms race that's going on, you know, the tools that exist now might not be the ones that actually end up winning in a few years' time. So if you build out these files in a readable manner that larger language models can actually access, you can just plug and play and kind of jump in and out wherever you need to, right? So this is a little look at my second brain. And these are all just different nodes of different pieces of information that link to the relevant connectors, essentially. So you've got info about my business, my clients, our tone of voice, the content we've published, and each of these files speak to each other and they can relationally link. And why this is so powerful is because how large language models work is they're based on context and tokens. If I gave all of that information in one big go to any kind of AI model, it would get confused, it would break, it would make things up. But on that particular brain, what I've essentially got is a set of instructions that allow the AI to find what I need it to find. So I've got a load of different menus that basically point it to different directions. So I have a master menu which will say, when you're looking for a sales-related task, follow this path. When you're looking for a marketing-related path, follow this path. And then there's loads of sub-menus to basically lower your credit usage. So you actually can use these models cheaper, faster, and in a more effective manner. Looks quite complicated. It is a little bit, but that was just a way to visualize all of the documentation, essentially. The cool thing about that brain is, like a human brain, it grows over time. So the more that I use it, the bigger and more powerful and more efficient it gets, essentially. Which means the better unlock you have with your business. So the second category is the category I call search and synthesis. And these tools are used to find, understand, and combine information from multiple sources very quickly. They allow you to interpret, summarize, and connect ideas across different questions and insights in minutes. And a tool will basically fit here if you can pull from multiple sources or documents and kind of combine that information and kind of synthesize it so you can get clear answers or outputs. And it basically helps you reduce your search time or your research time significantly. These are my 3 preferred, and I use them in 3 different ways at the moment. Again, there's a few different models, and they kind of keep coming up in the market. But the interesting thing to think about is these tools, Perplexity, Notebook, and Poppy, they're tools. They're not foundational models. OpenAI are a company. They build their own foundational models. You know what we see as ChatGPT, insert number, ChatGPT high, ChatGPT low, etc. They then bring all of those together in a nice, easy-to-use dashboard we all know as chatgpt.com. You have Anthropic with their Claude systems, with their Claude.ai. You have Google with Gemini, right? That's just a quick concept. That is the company building out their own bespoke models and actually articulating them in an easy-to-use manner. Tools like Perplexity or these kind of research and synthesis models, comes fine. Yeah, of course, yeah. These other tools that we're going to speak about, they're not foundational models. What they do is they take all of the insights and data already built out by Gemini, ChatGPT, Sonar, which is one of the Llama models made by Meta, who own Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all of that kind of stuff. And they mold them into their own unique use case so that they're extremely good at one particular thing. And that's why these are specialist tools, right? It's, you can think about the tools in your toolbox where you would only use it for one particular thing. You need it, but not very often. This is kind of where these fit in. Perplexity, amazing tool. Again, amazing for as a entrepreneur, amazing for when you're an employee, amazing even as a student as well. Perplexity is your pocket research assistant. And I will use this when I'm fact-checking myself, when I'm writing a presentation like this and I need to confirm a statistic, or when I'm starting just a piece of research for a project that I'm working on. Perplexity is fantastic at finding, searching, and articulating information for relevant topics. And again, I don't use the paid model, and I have never used the paid model. The free version is very, very, very robust. And as you can see here, what you can actually do is use something called a Google-style site operator. And if you're not a tech nerd, you probably don't even know what that is. But that is basically when you can search on Google, you can do site : the source, and it will only search that particular source. So you can do the same thing here, where I've said to Perplexity, tell me about the best supplements for improving my sleep, site : Reddit. This will go to any site I want it to, and if I didn't put that site in, it would find what it thought was the best sites. But for this particular reason, I just care what Reddit people are saying, right? Pardon? Why this is important. One, like I said, if you want to do the fact-checking like I spoke about. But two, if you're looking at launching a new product, making marketing content, or you're just doing some client research, if you know that Reddit is where actual people are going and having conversations about certain things, and we've got a client now, an online therapy provider, for example. If we went to Reddit for our market research to see what are people's pain points with BetterHelp, that will help build the foundation for our marketing content, for example. What it will do is it will synthesize the information and it will source everything. So you can actually fact check it too, and you can actually click through and fact check and see, is this right? As you can see, it pulled 18 sources, and all 18 sources are Reddit sources because of the site operator I used. So again, fantastic tool for research, fact checking yourself, and if you like to argue with people over the dinner table, if you keep looking under your table to find some research to help back your stats up. Notebook LM. Has anyone heard of Notebook LM in here? Nice. This is probably one of my favorite tools, and I think it's one of the coolest tools on the market. Notebook LM is a Google tool, right? And this is literally your internal training architect. AI is kind of democratizing knowledge, and this tool will allow you to learn basically anything that you want if you've got the agency to do so. And again, if you're a nerd like me, you would start using this tool a lot. But the cool thing is, you give it your own sources, you have a chat window, and then it has a studio function, which we'll discuss in a second. Its superpower, though, is that it only answers from the sources you give it, which means it cannot hallucinate, it can't make things up. But that also means it's only as good as the sources you give it. And this tool can help you build your own training material, revision cards, or even a podcast. As you can see, I made up a fake company. I used ChatGPT to make it all up, so apparently Hartwell & Co must be a popular name. And I've given it a few documents. I've given it a benefits and HR policy. I've given it a client service operating procedure, employee handbook, FAQs for new starters, IT and tools guidelines, and an organization chart and team structure. It's a bit small, but you might see this .md after each file name. That's a file type called Markdown, and it's just a coding language that all large language models, AI platforms speak in. So if you can give your resources to them in that language, it basically just allows them to contextualize it a lot quicker, use less credits, give you a better answer and a faster answer too. You can give PDFs and Word documents or anything else. It just means there's another layer of stretching it out and understanding what the task is or what the document is. So there's sometimes too much context needed or a lot of extra brain power from the AI needed essentially. Cool thing is though, it says here, this document serves as a comprehensive internal directory and operational guide for employees at the management consultancy Hartwell & Co. Now I have a chatbot like I do in ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatnot, that I can answer questions. But what's actually the use of this? Why would that be important? Well, if you have a new employee or a client that you want to onboard, you can essentially upload all the relevant documents and they have a chat there that can ask any question and is super hyper personalized to that business. You can add in meeting reports, intelligence, and you can synthesize it and pull key insights. If you have a quarterly strategy meeting and weekly strategy meetings like we do, I can put in all that information and see how have we actually done over the last 12 months. Have we hit the targets we spoke about hitting? Have we initiated what we wanted to do? You can do due diligence and research synthesis. Again, it can't use any source other than the one that you give it. And that's a superpower, but it's also a limitation. And also team training. So as you can see, I already ran through these, but these are the files I gave it. And here are the possible outputs it can give to me, other than the chatbot function. It can give me an audio overview, it can make me a slide deck, it can make me a video, a mind map, reports, flashcards, it can even quiz me. It can build an infographic, and it can give me a data table. So I hope your minds are kind of running on how could you use this. And again, like when I hyperfixate on a topic, which sometimes happens, I just find all the cool information, the books and whatnot, put it all in here, and I can just start learning things quite quickly. And as you can see here, I'm actually going in and I am using the flashcard functionality, and it's quizzing me on the information within my documentation. And it's not making up information because it's using only the information I'm given to it. So again, you can kind of start thinking about use cases, training material. Sales training is a really powerful use for this. And another cool one is that I've actually asked it what benefits and financial support are available to employees. And it's then read all of that, and it's now going to articulate back exactly their benefit structure on my made-up company here, Hartwell & Co. Breaks everything down. And also, as you can see, it's got numbers next to it. It's sourcing the information, so you can, again, if you were curious on that particular point, you can read the entire document. I then want to know, how do I apply for the cycle to work scheme? And it'll go super detailed on that, for example, and it'll tell me exactly about the benefits of the cycle to work scheme. It's pretty cool. And the thing that honestly blew my mind, especially as someone who likes listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of video material when I'm kind of doing other things in the background, is the fact that Notebook can build your
Welcome
podcast.
to this deep dive. We have a very specific mission for you today.
Yeah, we are opening up the internal playbook of Hartwell & Co.
Right, which is this 45-person management consultancy, founded in 2009, operating out of Leeds in London.
And to really understand them, we've compiled a pretty massive stack of their internal documentation.
I mean, we've got everything. The employee handbook, their client services, their operating procedures.
The HR policies, the IT guide, and even their organizational chart.
So the goal here for you listening is to basically decode exactly how a modern professional services firm whoa, did someone just break the fourth wall? Let's hear it.
So that has turned these documents into a 20-minute podcast between two AIs talking that I can now listen to, right? What you just heard there, the end bit where it said, whoa, did someone just break the fourth wall? I clicked the button that said, ask a question. It would actually say, right, we have a caller calling in now. Kayan's here. What question does he have? And I can ask the question. It will read out the question. Oh, that's a great question about the cycle to work policy. Here's the answer. So it's actually like a talk show that you can kind of create for your own use case, which is pretty crazy. So again, this is you can play with it on your kind of desktop, and then you can move it over to your iPhone too, or your whatever phone you use. For example, when I want to learn a new topic, if a piece of resource doesn't exist, or if I want to really understand just one set of resources, I basically load one of them up and listen to it in the gym, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Now, the next one is a tool called Poppy. And I was really excited by Poppy when it first came out. Then I kind of stopped using it, but recently I've gone really deep into Poppy again. And Poppy is very cool because it's in an interactive mind map formula where you can give it a load of different sources. And here I've basically given it a breakdown of my business. So I've told it about who I am, who my core audience is, and then a social proof bank, which is essentially all of our case studies and kind of things that we've done. I've then trained it on my tone of voice, a bit about my brand, and I've given it 2 of my YouTube videos so that it can understand how I like speaking. I've then given it 5 videos on YouTube of viral hooks all about storytelling. I've given it a bit more information about my business, and then 2 PDFs on viral hook frameworks. Then I found a load of inspiration on competitor content.
Meta just acquired an AI.
Lift different tools that I like.
AI probably.
And then this particular one, I wanted to say, big fan of the frameworks used in this video. So that AI knew that I liked that particular thing. I've then given it my own ideas, so a few ideas of YouTube videos that I want to be making soon. And then I've basically just had this prompt that was ready for demonstration purposes to say, create me 10 viral hooks, use all of this piece of information. I can attach all of those context windows to a particular chat window, which allows me to pull on a load of different models, every model we've kind of spoken about already, enter the prompt, and within a few seconds, it's reading those documents and can hyper-contextualize it. I could unplug these, I could plug new things in, I could keep working around the different resources and basically get, again, hyper-personalized and contextualized answers to my specific use case. These kind of things would take days and days of kind of collating research and actually articulating your ideas and mapping different points together. But this allows you to do it in a kind of more visual way. Super important for creative teams. Sales and marketing is the lifeblood of any business. So this kind of really allows you to amplify that. And I know I said I call the other one a second brain. This was maybe my third brain, because when I want a brain dump, I'll drop I really like that video, this is why I liked it, and comment on it. So that when I am making content, preparing for presentations like this, I can see what kind of ideas and concepts do I actually want to understand and talk about. Now, the third category is what I call the creative studio. And this bucket is for tools that help you produce high quality creative outputs, such as design, media, presentations, or video storytelling. They go beyond the text focus and actually turn your ideas into polished, shareable assets in one way or another. And a tool qualifies here if it can either create or enhance visual, audio, or multimedia content. For me, I like using it to help turn my rough ideas into essentially prompts for my designer to go away and build out, on my editor to help him kind of build out certain things rather than replacing them, because they're not ready for that at all, and I don't ever think they will. AI is never going to understand taste, which is a big thing I'm going to be talking about on the Wednesday presentation. Like how to actually build a taste window and how to actually be AI proof is to get a really good sense of taste and how you'll actually be able to do that. But the 3 tools I'm going to talk about are Nano Banana Pro, which is a Google product, Flow, which is a Google product, and Claude Design, which is obviously part of the Claude suite, right? Starting off with Nano Banana Pro, fantastic image generation model. But also going back to the AI arms race idea, ChatGPT dropped 5.5, which is their 2.0 share image model. I just said a load of random numbers, but basically that's just their new ChatGPT update that's better than the current Nano Banana Pro image model, right? It's going to keep going back and forth, and that's why you really need to keep an open mind and be very flexible with your tools. But these 6 assets attached were assets that my designer who works for me full-time created. And they are basically like ebooks and like kind of templates that we kind of give out. And I basically gave it these 6 and said, this is exactly the style I want. This is what I want to achieve. I want it to be how to extract 100K from your LinkedIn. Follow the exact format. Let me know if you need any clarifying questions or brand assets to do this. Going back to what I said earlier about asking clarifying questions. Literally within seconds, it created this, which is almost identical to the style and the output that Ibrahim would have produced had I sent him that as a text message. Instead, it was done in seconds. So really good for taking initial brand ideas and concepts and either elevating them, duplicating them, multiplying them, and testing new things really quickly. Personally, I still think there's a bit, again, I'm someone that knows what AI generation looks like and does it very well. For me, that still looks a bit too AI, but I can give it to Ibrahim now and say, this is the concept I want. Like, I'm not a fan of the image, like fix that. He can do what he does from a design perspective and just make that 10 times better. Rather than me texting him and saying, do this, or send him a voice note. That's like, literally, Ibrahim, make this better. Like, that is literally my instructions now. And like, he's fantastic, but still, like, it can kind of start seeing the workflow, right? Google Flow. This one is really cool, and this is really cool for a lot of different use cases. But I kind of struggle to think of a general use case, but I hope this kind of shows the power and kind of gets everyone's mind ticking about how this could be used. Before I do show you this tool, there's something really cool. It's kind of weird and very kind of dystopian, but there's a website called Flow TV, which is like a TV channel for just prompt outputs. Which is really crazy. And again, it's like everyone's prompt outputs. If you went on like spiders as the channel, you'd see all the prompts that relate to spiders, like that people have generated, and it's literally like a TV channel that flicks through. It's quite it's a bit like Rick and Morty, if anyone watched that. But yeah. So Google Flow. I literally said, use a professional UX UI product design wireframe of an iPhone. Summarising that big text. You can see here, Nano Banana 2, Google product. This is just an interface that can do this specialist task, right? It's using Google's Gemini backend. Well, it's using Nano Banana's backend, which uses Google Gemini's backend, right? So you see how these tools will interact and power each other? It's then generated this. Nice. I've then said, okay, now use this wireframe to create me an iPhone that looks exactly in the same structure. It's done this. Very nice. I've then said, now animate this from static. That's literally what I said. Didn't really give it too much more info. And it was able to create this. When I tell you that took me 20 minutes to do, and that was with me like scrolling at the same time on my phone. I'm just joking. No, that was literally a 10, 15 minute job. And again, is that production ready? Maybe not. But that is now, I can go over to a VFX team or a design team or whatnot and say, this is literally what I want. Like, there's no briefing needed, there's no conception needed. That's what I want, and do it like that, please, but make it better and do it in these formats, whatever it might be. Also allows you to, again, as a small business, there's loads of cool concepts there. If you're an e-commerce brand and you want to show the ingredients in your product, like a supplement brand maybe, you could take the raw pill and make it open up and show all the ingredients in there. Be like £100,000 animation project if you're going to a big London-based agency, you could do that by yourself or at least conceptualize it now. Claude Design. Again, I said earlier, Claude is very, very good. Claude Design is also very, very good. Claude Design right now uses a separate token system than Claude itself does. It's still the same subscription, so you don't have to buy another one, but it does allow you to kind of take your designs and rephrase them and refresh them in how you want them to be done. So it allows you to build designer-ready briefs. At least that's how I use it. Again, what would have been a brief then to loads of concepts to then finished product? I did a brief, I did the concepts, I asked Ibrahim, who's my designer by the way, to do this for me, please. And as you can see, he's a very good designer from these slides, right? But it will identify your context, your brand, your guidelines, everything that you give it. So I give it my brand book, my logo files, my landing pages, everything that I've ever created. And then I can actually visually create my briefs. And then it can write and render real code to produce functional visual mock-ups that are actually animated, that can actually be used. Generates it in HTML, so unless you know how to use that and deploy that, you're going to struggle a little bit, but it's very cool. And again, a little example of how I use it. I give it a brief, I get a prototype, and I allow my design team to refine it. And here's literally just me using it in chat. It's already got my design system, which is trained on my brand colors, my tone, my typography, all of that kind of stuff. And Ibrahim sent me a really, really nice landing page that we're launching to kind of show one of our service lines. But I really didn't like the hero image. So I just went over, and rather than explaining what I wanted, I knew what I wanted was a centralized hub with loads of different departments flying into that. And again, everyone in this room, if I said that, I'd probably thinking something very, very slightly different. But I knew exactly what I wanted. So what I did is I went over to Claude Design, gave it that, told it what I needed, answered all the questions that it asked me, and then it gave me a concept, gave me another concept, and it gave me a third concept. And that's more or less what I wanted, and don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be deploying those personally. They're still good, but again, in my opinion, they're still very AI generated. But what would have been brief concept, could be a day or two's worth of work, I was able to give those 3 images to Ibrahim, and he was able to provide me this within an hour. So for me, it just allows me to articulate and formulate my ideas a lot quicker, and then get to the end goal, not just faster, but at a higher quality. And that's how I use these particular design tools, me personally. I'm not a designer. I'm creative in the way I think, but I wouldn't say I am a creative, but I can utilize that, these tools. The next category, and appreciate I'm throwing a lot of things out here to you, so bear in mind this is being recorded and we can ask questions after. But these are tools that they don't just assist, but they actually act on your behalf. So think of them like an assistant. These agents can plan, execute, and iterate towards a goal with minimal or zero input. They can handle multi-step workflows almost independently, very much kind of access your computer and do the thing that you need it to do. And a tool basically belongs here if it can take action on your behalf, right? And it can handle multi-step tasks or processes without getting confused. And you have 2 tools, in my opinion, that are leading the charge. Manus, which was recently acquired for $2 billion by Meta. And guess who owns the next one? Claude, right? Claude Code is the next one, which does a similar sort of thing. Claude are basically just going for everyone at this point. But anyway, they're both very, very good and very, very powerful tools. So they both do very similar things. So I'm only going to focus on Manus for today, just because off the shelf, you can plug and deploy Manus very easily, everyone in this room. Whereas Claude Code requires a bit more setup and understanding. But in my opinion, you get very quick wins from this one, but not as scalable. Whereas you get super scalable, super powerful from Claude Code, it just requires a bit more setup and expertise. So Manus is your new employee for $20 a month, right? And it is very easy to use. And like I said, it was purchased by Meta. And the cool thing for me is it can take control of your computer and do tasks on your behalf. And it can easily build lightweight apps to help you solve specific problems. So a cool use case for this, and funny enough, it was with one of our projects, Marios, that we're working on. We are about to launch a new site for Marios' company, Chillerbox. And before we sent over the final set of kind of development work, I wanted to make sure that everything was ready to be kind of with the right departments. So I opened Whisperflow, which is a tool we're going to talk about in a second, and one I touched on this morning. And I spoke to Manus, and I ran through the website line by line and said, not a fan of this, not a fan of that, that needs to change, we have to link that up, we have to link that up, we have to link that up. Manus went away, built me a spreadsheet, and put each cell, assigned the task, put what department it needs to action that task, and then it did 90% of the spreadsheet work for me. Wasn't perfect, still needed formatting, still needed adjustment, and it missed a few tasks, or it maybe assigned it to the wrong department. However, what would have been a few hours of work easily was more so an hour or less, just helping me with admin so I could actually think about the high leverage tasks that are actually going to move the project forward. And here is a use case that I've shown for Manus. This is a slightly different use case. What I've said here before the video plays is I've given it a prompt, and I basically said, this is who I am, this is the kind of content I want to create. I like Alex Hormozi's videos. Go and find me other videos very similar to him, other creators similar to him, and give me some content ideas. Give it the prompt. What it's doing is it's starting to think. And what I've asked for is I wanted the output to be a spreadsheet ready, a ready spreadsheet. I didn't want just a chat function. So it's breaking down what it's doing. It's showing me the computer where I was like, you know, that's a bit gibberish, even as someone who's a bit tech savvy. And it tells you it's thinking, and then you can actually open up Manus's computer, right, and see what it's working on. You can see it's on Alex Hormozi, who is the source that I gave it, his YouTube channel, and it's going through his videos, and it's organizing it by the highest viewed videos. And what it's doing is it's now finding similar candidates, and I've collected a large pool of public YouTube search metadata across the competitor set, and I'm now shortlisting them, it said. It built me out a shortlist, but I said I wanted it a spreadsheet, right? Don't worry. It's made me 3 different spreadsheets, actually created the sheet for me, and provided it back as an Excel, which I can now download or copy over to a Google Sheet. Again, that ran in the background while I was doing another task. And you can see video title, video URL, publish date, the views, the format, the topic, the hooks used, why it performed well, key insights, and content opportunity. I can then go back to that now and say, okay, this is cool, but here's my montage digital brain that I plug in. Tell me how I can adapt this to my offering. And it would create another row, and it would articulate exactly how I could then reuse that. And I've actually got a live spreadsheet that I'm constantly updating without actually even updating the physical sheet, just by talking to my Manus. And I say, I like this inspiration, give it the YouTube URL. Manus will then go and find its Instagram account, Facebook account, if they have a private community, Twitter account, add it to a spreadsheet row, then it will find the tools that I actually want to have access to, and the video titles, and then could articulate in how I could use it in my business. So again, there's so much spreadsheet admin that you don't need to do anymore, right? Claude Code, you can do a lot of that same stuff, but Manus, I could have created a new account today and done that, right? So yeah, it's really powerful, and its credits are quite generous as well. Can also do other cool stuff, but dashboards and whatnot, but we don't have infinite time, unfortunately. But if you do have any questions, feel free to hang around after, and I'd be more than happy to help. But as you can see actually up there, you can see in my Chrome tab right at the top, if you look at the orange star full for long, that is the Claude version, or that I can give access to my Chrome. So I can do very similar things to that, and it will open up a tab on my Chrome browser and start doing research on my behalf. So again, I'm a bit of a kind of AI tool hoarder, but I guess I kind of need to for my job, so it's fine. Category 5 is smart assets. There's loads of assets and tools that could come here, but these are just my 3 favorite, and the 3 that I think would give the most general use case, right? This kind of focuses on tools that turn everyday business outputs into actually usable, intelligent, dynamic assets, instead of just a static file or set of text, right? And it basically a tool will live here if it enhances or embeds your intelligence into an output or a collaboration or an organization or communication. And it just makes your existing workflows far more efficient. And these are Google Workspace, Gamma, and Whisperflow. Anyone that got sold a Microsoft Copilot license, I'm sorry, but Google's way better, but might not be all the time. So why is the Google Workspace so good? It's because it's a central operating system, at least for us. Like I said at the start, Gemini can articulate it, it connects to every single AI tool really easily, and it's insane value for only £10 a month per user. You get access to an email platform, cloud storage, meetings, chat, which replaces Slack if you wanted it to, tasks, everything basically, as well as Gemini and Notebook LM. But the superpower here isn't necessarily the model, like I said earlier. It's more of the native integration to Gemini. Also, it integrates really well with everything else. And it kind of allows your entire team to have a centralized knowledge base that can be in the cloud. It can sit on my MacBook files and I can draw from it whenever I use a new AI model. And like I said, they all feed to Gemini. But you might be sitting there thinking, ChatGPT links to the Google Suite. So does Claude. That is correct. But they're third-party integrations, which isn't the end of the world. It just means certain things can't be done. But honestly, unless you've got a very specific use case, it's not the end of the world. So if you're not on a Google Workspace, it's not the end of the world. But what I've learned recently is I'm really underutilizing my £10 a month I'm spending, right? Really trying to save change here. So yeah, there's a lot of functionality there. The next is Gamma. And Gamma's been around for quite some time. It was probably one of the pioneers in AI-powered platforms. Claude Design and Claude itself can do a lot of this. But again, off the shelf, Unreal, free to use up until 10 AI-generated slides, £8 a month if you want up to 20, really good. But the tool itself shouldn't be the kind of selling point. In my opinion, it should be the use case. This is how I use it and how anyone in here should be using it. You take a meeting transcript, you should be recording every meeting. If you were here this morning, you'll know that. You build a summary prompt. You basically summarize your transcript with the summary point that breaks down how you should articulate the transcript into a set of slides. You give it to Gamma, and then you can send a follow-up to a client, to a prospect, to a team member in 15 minutes that has their core pain points from the sales call that you had with them, that has your offer that you can kind of show your offer to them, that kind of outlines all the key points and all the next steps. So a really powerful way to use this. This is the prompt. You'll get this afterwards, and also you'll get a much more in detailed version than this. Kind of had to summarize it a little bit for the slides. And then what you can do is give the prompt. I've got the output just in interest of saving the time on this video. I paste the prompt in. By the way, I haven't paused or sped this video up at all, just so everyone's aware. It's got three options. Generate from the notes or outlines, summarize long text, or preserve this exact text. I then can choose whether I want minimal, concise, detailed, or extensive text. It articulates who I'm writing for, and I can change it, obviously. And I can pick a theme. I've already got the Montage digital theme locked in. And I want to see how many cards I want. I pay £8 a month because I'm a baller, but I only used 10 cards. I click generate, and this is real time. This is generating a slide for me. Where I can actually now follow up with this prospect. I can record a Loom video if I'm being extra intuitive that day and say, hey, thanks for your time. Here's a bit of a summary of what we ran through. Makes you seem like you're super on the ball, because you are. Makes you show that you've really understood the client's pain points, because you have. And it makes you seem very good at what you do, because you are, right? And again, this isn't, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't, as you can see, I haven't used Gamma slides to present to you guys today, but they've got a specific time and place for it. I've recorded YouTube videos where I've used Gamma as the kind of backdrop to kind of prompt myself and show it as a visual backdrop. So there's definitely a time and place for it. Also super easy to edit. I think I show here me not liking that image. So what I do is I just click, I can replace it or I can remove it. And there you go, click present. and it's nice and styled. And it's nice and animated too, which I think is really cool. So again, I would be using this whenever you get off a sales call or a team call, whatever it is, with a prospect, and sending them a personalized follow-up deck, because it really shows that you care about the prospect. Now, I've said this probably about every tool, so it probably doesn't really hold any weight anymore, but this is probably one of my favorite tools, right? Changed the game for me, Whisperflow, and I mentioned it briefly earlier. And Whisperflow is why I sit there and talk to myself a lot when I'm sitting in co-working or in my office, and why probably after this, a lot of you guys are going to be doing the same, because it's extremely accurate voice-to-text transcription across all of your devices. And it allows you to easily give more context, because the friction of giving context is gone. I don't have to sit there and think about what am I trying to say, what order do I need to give the AI information, how, like that's gone. I literally just click start, and that, by the way, was when I was showing you that Poppy thing earlier, I literally opened it up and said, hey, I'm looking to use Poppy AI to create viral Instagram scripts, I have a list of creators, and that was just me talking to it, super conversational. And it just allowed me to give all the context. I could say, I did do this video earlier, here's a link, I thought about that, it'd actually be really cool to do this. And its AI features are really clever in the fact that, you can teach it shortcuts. So like it kept spelling my name wrong. So I could just tell it that that's wrong and it would fix it. So every time I say my name, it knows exactly how to say it. I could give it commands. So I could even say enter, the word enter, and it would stop the transcription. So like super hands-free, like Tony Stark, it's quite cool. Yeah, that's kind of like, there's so many use cases there with that. And that is the kind of biggest unlock. The only problem, and it's not really a problem unless you're like me and you bought a year-long license to it, is that there's no real moat for this product. And the iPhone experience is really bad, because iPhone, they're obviously working on something themselves, because to use it on the iPhone, it takes you to the app, then you have to relog back into whatever platform you're on. It's not that long, just with, when you get everything you want as soon as you want it now. It's just a bit annoying seeing the page flick a little bit. But there's no moat because every AI tool is integrated in voice. And like I mentioned with Snapchat, not having a moat for story features, and Instagram and Facebook easily being able to steal that. Gemini, you can't see it here because I've got a chat running, but Claude, Gemini, GBT, they all have a function to click and transcribe. Although Fathom is free and is very good, so I would recommend giving it a go. Sorry, Whisperflow is free and very good, so I'd recommend giving it a go. Now, the sixth category is automation and orchestration. Bit of a mouthful, I need to probably rename that, but these are basically tools that connect apps, they move data, and they run repeatable workflows across your business, right? So instead of just doing one task in isolation, you can basically link up your tasks and say, when this happens, do this, if that happens, do that, right? And you can do a lot of conditional-based logic with it. There's 3 tools, and they've actually been around for a very long time: Zapier, Make, and NA10. And I've kind of organized them in how I think is like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Holly asked earlier what tool I showed on the screen, and that was an NA10 one. It can read like JSON files and like do some really cool complex stuff. Again, you can do some really simple automations with these, like just simple things like when X happens, do Y. And again, similar to the agent slide, I'm going to talk about it more generally. This is a screenshot of one of my far too many NA10 automations that I have, right? It looks quite complicated. Probably is a little bit complicated when you're looking at it like that. But what it is something that has saved me 16 hours a week within my business. And what this is an automation, runs every 6 hours. It checks a database for live client accounts. It then checks another database for ad accounts connected to those live client accounts. It then goes over to Google, both my Google admin accounts that I've got across 2 different parts of my business. It then checks who's live and who's not live. If they're live, it will update the account with all of their stats. If they're paused, it will change the status on my sheet on Airtable to paused, and then it'll run through and do the same thing on Meta. This runs every 6 hours in my business. It's probably ran twice today already. And if I need to execute it manually, I can literally come on and just click execute manually. This is really powerful because repetitive task from moving data from A to B, high propensity to make human mistake, very low propensity for an automation to make a mistake. Let me be clear, there is not a single piece of AI in this thing that you're looking at right now. This is automation and system building, okay? You don't need to put AI into everything. If anything, putting AI into a lot of things breaks it. You want to think about what's a sound, repeatable system that could be automated and adjusted. That's what this is. Again, I could, and I do, on a separate automation, but I keep them separate because I don't want them to break each other, basically, is once the data has been processed, another automation runs where it will read the last report and it will write a report using a ChatGPT OpenAI plugin that will write a written report for me that will say, this is what happened last week, this is a replacement, and it's just trained on like the hundreds of reports we've sent out before. So this is a quick summary if anyone does want to take a quick snap now, but these are the kind of 6 categories that I thought about, right? Everyday AI, search and synthesis, creative studio, autonomous agents, smart assets, automation and orchestration. They're all important. You should have one in each bucket, I would say, really, maximum for most people, but you should definitely be playing around with these different tools and seeing what works for your workflow. But you're probably sitting there thinking, Kai, I came here to get a bit of understanding on what I should be using. You just confused me even more. Sorry, firstly. But how do I actually use them? It might be a bit useful for you to understand. I've kind of given a few examples as we go through. But honestly, most things start with Fathom or Whisperflow. Fathom is my transcriber. Whisperflow is me talking to my AI, like I said earlier, where I speak out the idea and the goal, or I copy a transcript so I know the starting point. I then use the concept of pull prompting, which is something I taught this morning, which is basically, rather than you trying to tell the AI the best way to get to a destination, you say to it, now ask me questions to get to this destination. It's like driving and using a map to get from A to B, or using Waze or Google Maps and saying, this is where I want to go, work out the most intelligent way to get there. That's kind of what pull prompting is. And again, I'll be giving out all the recordings and slides for all 6 of my sessions this week. So you'll be able to watch them if you want, or give it to a notebook and let it synthesize it for you, tell you everything I said. Then I'm going over to Claude Cowork, and that's got my Montage digital brain plugged into it. Claude Cowork is just another way to access Claude, which can read documents and files and actual folders. So I give it the folder that I'm particularly working on. So I either plug it into my brain if I'm working on internal work, or client A if I'm working on a particular client. So it knows everything I've spoken about, everything I've delivered to the client in one place, so I don't ever miss anything. And that means every output knows the voice, the work, and the context without me having to give it to it, basically. And then what I'll do is I'll iterate and recontextualize as and when I need to. I'll say, that's not right, let's do it like this, or do you know what, this is some other information you might not have access to. I'll then answer the questions from the pull prompting, and then I'll mold it to my own use case. So I'll take the content, I'll shape it, I'll then put it how I need to articulate it, or is it a deck, is it an email, is it a post? It's all the same thinking, it's just a different output, essentially. So you want to think about yourself as the orchestrator, right? Has anyone watched this? Whiplash? Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I'm like the guy that shouts at my AI tools, right? That's wrong, do it again. But you don't have to be if you've got all these good systems set up, basically, right? But do you need all of these tools? There's loads of tools we spoke about today. There's thousands more that I haven't spoken about. Honestly, no, you don't at all, unless you're like a superpower user freak like me that has like a million things going on at once. But if you can afford multiple subscriptions, I would actually mix and match as needed to kind of amplify your workflow. Even if you had a paid subscription of every single tool I spoke about today, where there's a lot of overlap, you're looking at £200, maybe £300 maximum to kind of have all of those tools to play around with. And okay, that's not a chunk of change, but for the amount of output you could get, a fraction of a salary or a fraction of your time as an individual, you can really amplify what you're kind of doing. And obviously, as most of us are here to learn about upskilling ourselves and business use cases, of course, that's what most of this talk was about. But you can use this to amplify personal use cases. Like the artifact thing I showed you earlier, I use it to log my workouts and my calorie and protein intake every day. You know, I've tracked my deep work, I track certain other things. There's just lots of different tools on the market, but we should only really add them if they do solve a specific problem. That's what I would say. That would be like a big takeaway for me. But yeah, there's so many tools and you've got to be building your toolbox. But I've got a few, just before we end off, I've got a few kind of things that you should be thinking about that hopefully should round off everything I've spoken about today. It'll be a really nice idea to kind of, if possible, and I know we've all got extremely busy lives, but to set some time aside every week or month as like sandbox time, like play around with new tools. You know, you've seen a new tool, you've put it on your to-do list, you go away and play with it, you think about a specific problem or use case you have and just try and solve it. Make sure you start building context and knowledge that lives separate to your tools so you're not stuck with a tool. A lot of you right now have all of this context and knowledge on ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and that means you're essentially a slave to that tool. But if you had a structured breakdown of all of your processes, procedures, documentation hosted on SharePoint or Google Drive or whatever else, you then are tool agnostic. You can move around as and when you need to. I'd recommend you master a handful of tools and only use tools when they help to solve a specific use case. A lot of you might be very well ingrained with ChatGPT, and I'm not saying today jump off ChatGPT and go into Claude. They don't pay me. If they did, I might be saying that. But if you're still very good with ChatGPT, keep using it for your specific use case. But set some time aside. Try the same task on the two different tools, and see what happens. So that is a nice roundup of how to know what to use and when. If you do want any of the recordings, any of the resources that I'll be giving out, then just scan that QR code and I'll basically send out all the resources, all the presentations, all the recordings.